Hi guys. If you don't mind, I will make it full screen. Now it's gonna be slightly better. I hope it's gonna be easy to hear me. I guess you all seen this picture several times already, so today I'm gonna talk about Ramda, and my presenter is actually isn't working. Okay, so it's not focused probably. Yes, it works. Sorry. So, my name is Oleksandr. I'm Ukrainian expat who lives in Warsaw. It's a very beautiful city. I really like that. I'm working in data art. It's a big outsourcing company. We have more than 3,000 employees around the Eastern Europe in different countries and cities. In my free time, I'm working on my own projects, contribute in open source projects, and participate in different meetups and conferences. Today I'm going to talk about Ramda, about functional programming, and guys, please raise your hands who is aware of functional programming. Yes, actually it's why I'm here, because React community is the most functional in JavaScript. And also, please raise your hands who is aware what is Karen. It's pretty much good. So, first of all, I wanted to highlight several points. First one, that functional programming isn't new. I guess it's older than most of us. You shouldn't use it everywhere just because it's trendy. Just to make some reasonable solutions based on your experience, your tasks, and whatever. And I'm gonna talk about some simple operations. I guess it's the simplest operation you can do with programming at all, and I'll tell you how to do. It's a little bit more complicated. We usually make things more complicated in JavaScript. It's all about us. Actually, I can go further and do something like this with monas, but it's topic of different talks, so we'll focus on monas. Of course, when you do something like this, you probably feel yourself like, well, probably I kind of smart if I can understand this. But no, guys, please don't make things more complicated just because you found some trendy technology. Please, I blame you. And first of all, I wanted to highlight several rules of functional programming. First one is per and per functions. Here are two examples, pretty simple. First one is per function because it uses arguments outside it. And second one is per function because we passed arguments inside, we did some manipulations with them, and we returned them. Also, per functions may mutate arguments outside, like here. They can mutate, even like here, we can pass an object, but we'll mutate parameter of this object instead, so we won't create a new one. And here you can see that in using pure functions, it should look like this one. So we just extend objects with ECMAScript 6 object assign. Also, we shouldn't access variables from outer scope. So yes, real life example of pure functions. They are React reducers. I guess most of us are familiar with it. And the second point is mutations. So we have mutable and immutable data structures in JavaScript. So objects, arrays, they're immutable, and you can see that just using default method for sorting, we are mutating arrays, so it mutates it. And here is example of immutable operation. When we map array, we get a new array out in the end, and it works like this. Real life example, Redux state, it's immutable, at least should be. And the third point is Karen, is the main topic of my talk today. Probably it might be associated with something like this. And Karen, it's about the operation when we make um, a single call of function be split it into several ones like this. So we'll make function which executes in several steps. So Java will add the first argument, it will return another function, we pass another argument inside, and we do adding, something like that I showed you in the very beginning. So, you know, the first association when I've seen this in documentation was like, guys, why do I really need that? When I found some cool technologies, it was clear why do I need them, like async awaits or promises earlier, like RxJS and many different things. And it, you know, it's not clear from the first look why do I need this. So I decided to go a little bit deeper and show you some real practical example. We can create a wrapper for database connection. It's just for demonstration. This syntax doesn't exist. I mean, this the big connection might be everything. So we can create a carried function to save something to database. So here we call the outer function. It returns us inner function with argument already passed inside. And in the end, we can just use it to do some operations. So it's about composition of functions and about removing some redundant and duplicated code. So today I'm going to talk about Ramda. It's a library for functional programming for carrying, and the main idea of Ramda that everything inside is carried. So Ramda is 246 carried helpers, and moreover, it can replace Wadash for many cases actually, and on my project I got rid of Wadash with Ramda. But it behaves differently, so if you decide to switch, make sure that arguments are located differently, that behavior is a little bit different, and I'll point to some differences. And here is an example how I can make any function carried with Ramda. So we have some function that takes 3 arguments and just sounds them in the end, and we can just carry this function and pass any, like we can pass 2 in the one iteration, we can pass 1, 2, 3, like a single iterations, it will work. And guys, it's kind of basic task for interviews, JavaScript interviews. What is going to return? Someone. Okay, it was kind of tricky because actually parse int takes several arguments, and the second argument is matrix. And when we use map, we have also several arguments we pass to the functions inside, and the second one is index. That's why it doesn't gonna work. It's not gonna work, and you can see how we can solve this problem with Ramda. So we can carry the function of parsing function. And using this thing, I'll focus on it, we can make this function carried and it will work out. So what does it mean actually? If you write it with plain JavaScript, it's gonna look like this. So you can see that I just created a wrapper out of that, passed the value. I'm sorry, I wanted to use the same object and variable here, and afterwards we can use it here and it will work safely. So again, it doesn't look that beneficial, and actually it works for big data structures, it works for big functions we need to carry, and also Ramda provides you some helpers to make it really beneficial. So I mentioned that default thing, it's indicator of Ramda, which allows you to highlight the value which will be passed in the function afterwards. For example, you have already some function, you have there 2 arguments, and you want to make it carried, but you want to send the first argument in the end. You can mark it with this one. This guy will help us, and here we go, it works like this. So the next value will pass into resulting function, into parse int, it's gonna be this one. Uh, so I decided to separate some features in logical sections, and let's go ahead. First of all, it's about comparison of different data types. Like, okay, here we have some conditions. Like, several variables should be true. We can do this because we have coercion in JavaScript, and I really like it, but it won't work. We can do it with Ramda. We have some helper which will apply some condition, so r equals to some scope of data. It's very useful, and I will actually this feature appeared quite working on my project. Another example how we can make some comparison of several conditions. So we have minimum, maximum condition, like greater or equal, lighter or equal, so smaller than some value. And in the end, we can just verify both conditions. So we got f1 function is percent, and I mean just to validate is this value look like percent, and we can validate values. Another use case, we can validate any conditions, like this string doesn't look like one of those two, and here we go. Here is another example. I'm not sure I highlighted that weirdly, I'm sorry for that. But actually, we can work with several props. Like we have objects, and we can apply conditions to objects. Like we have prop row, it should be developer, and we have row location, like Warsaw, and this person gonna be hired if it passes several examples. So here are not strings, here are those two objects. And in the end, you can see that we just pass objects in the resulting caret function, and it works like this. We can do apply. It's quite simple, so we can create also some helper. And actually, it's not that useful for maths, but it's useful for functions with many arguments. Ramda provides us all basic stuff why we like Lodash. So we have deep cloning for objects, we have deep equality validation. For example, we have several objects, we want to compare them. Okay, no problem. We have some additional functions like count by. It will apply some function to every element of array and will count the results. Like we have rounding function here, and we'll apply it to every value. So we get 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, and we got 2 ones, 2 twos, and 1 3. It's applicable to strings. It's applicable to everything. The only thing you need to define rules. Also, you can use default value, like safety, not actually safety validator, but for example, if you get some unexpected data from server, it's very useful. You may not be sure, like, okay, we have this data in this field, it may be false, it may be present or not present at all. And when we are working with third-party APIs, when we are working with user inputs, it might be that useful. But we can go even deeper, I'll show you. We can drop the repeats. Actually, it's quite a rare function, but I was strict with that, and I decided to notice it. It works just step by step. So we have 2 here, which actually repeats these 2, but it will not be removed. It removes only the repeats which come in one after each other. Also, we can write, we can compare objects by some property. For example, we have several models on backends. which we were taking from server, and we don't need to compare whole objects. You know, we can compare only IDs, and based on that we can make decision like, yes, those objects are equal, at least equal for us. So it's kind of helpful. Let's go a little bit deeper, even deeper, and some examples might be not that obvious. If not, I'm sorry for that, because yes, it looks like this one. Its picture is quite applicable to many things, but it's very applicable to functional programming, especially when it comes to some mathematical explanation of how does it work. You open, so you can see like 2 lines of some formula, and okay. So what I really like in Ramda, it allows me to work with objects in complex way. I shouldn't apply all that stuff I shown you in the very beginning for each parameter separately. I can define rules which I'll apply to objects. One of the way to do that is evolve. Here we have some source data. This is example just on several screens because too much code. And we have some first name. You can see it is not trained, so in some ideal world we need to remove useless spaces. They have some data, we know there are numbers, we have some ID, and we wanna do some actions with it. We wanna increment last, we wanna decrement remaining. It might be time, money, whatever. We wanna do some actions with our first name, remove useless spaces, make it uppercase. We wanna do some actions with last name, but okay, we got some data where we don't have our last name, so it's kind of safe, which is quite good for us. And we can define those rules and just apply it to every particular data which we will get from the server, which we expect to look like this. And in the end, we already we can evolve those transformations, this object, and we will get the resulting object, which is really useful. Lenses, it's another approach how you can manage interaction between objects and some data. Between objects and rules. And for example, you have I'd like to say several words about lenses also. I touched some conceptions in previous topics, but lenses is a big approach which may deserve a separate talk. It allows you to describe some rules which will be applicable to objects also. Just make sure they are present in Ramda. I can't focus on them now. And also we have some very useful things to work with data. For example, we have some array, big array. We define some function which will use as setter. We have some array of values we want to extract. So it means like, okay, I want to have this, this, and this from this. And here is how I want to have it. And in the end, I will get array with 2 elements because 999 isn't present here. So it's also safe function here. So I really like that Ramda provides very safe things, and it cares about me, and so I like that. Also, there is something, it's called project. It can be also phrased like SQL for web, for frontend, because, for example, we have several objects. I place them into array. So there is just array which has those 2 objects. And I can say like, okay, give me please name objects which will have name and posts from this one. And in the end, I will get only that properties I defined here. It's very useful also for big amounts of data, especially if it's kind of REST API we got big response, but we don't really need all this data. We can easily define what we'll get from it. Again, as for me, syntax really reminds SQL in some ways, so we can just specify what we need and from where we need it. Also, it is one thing which I'm waiting in JavaScript for a long time, and miracle still not happening. There is some proposal, it's on first stage, and it's moving very slow, unfortunately. It's called Elvis operator in several languages. It's also called safe nullable operator and many actually other ideas. The idea is that I guess error, which is called can't access value of undefined. It's our main headache, and this operator solves the problem. For example, I have some object, and it will return me a value, which is here, or it will return me null. Of course, probably I wanna specify some default value. For example, if I don't have this value, I wanna use something default. So we have also special function for this case. Like, okay, if there is 2, give me, if there is some value, give me some value, it will give us 2. If there won't be, it will give us not available in the end. Also, I wanted to say several words about pipes. They help us to hack a system a little bit. Like this guy. I don't know, have you done it when you were a child? But pipes allows us to unite several carried functions in Ramda. Actually, pipes are not something about Ramda itself. Pipes are about approach of not just functional programming, just an approach you can use everywhere. And here is some data we will use it, and you can see that we wanna do some. We wanna take some data. We wanna apply this function on top of that. We wanna apply another function on top of that, and it works this way. So we can just specify what functions are we gonna call step by step, and it will work. And
a quick question.
Yes.
Did you have to specify the underscore? In data this isn't path or carried?
Yes, just carried.
So there's no need for that?
No.
Okay.
Do you notice the difference between those two options?
Sorry?
Do you notice the difference between those two options? The idea is, I'm sorry.
Probably handles null values better?
No, actually, second one, I'm sorry. Second one iterates array 3 times. So we'll iterate it once and we'll apply data this once. We'll iterate it again and we'll apply it for the rounding function again. We'll iterate it once more time just to multiply value by 2, but we can do the same in pipe and we'll iterate the array only once. So it's kind of useful from performance perspective. Also, of course, you can do it like just call this here map, call some function inside and just declare calls of every function inside it, but with pipes it's become more small and readable. Also, you can define some default property for objects if you're sure that this path exists. You don't want to use path, you can use something like this, just additional instrument. And what is also very important in my opinion, it's flatten. It's something part of something which flatmap does in some libraries and monads in RxJS, which is kind of moded either. And for example, we have some structure here, and flatten will make it flat, like this. I mean, like this. So we'll get one level array in the end, and its behavior is quite similar to flatten deep in underscore. So it makes sure that just simple flatten in Ramda, it's not like simple flatten in Lodash. It's like flat and deep. And yes, again, it overlaps with Lodash in many particular um, functions in many approaches. However, the main difference that you can see that all Ramda things, just to make sure, for example, here, just a minute, it's not that. For example, here, we have data last, or for example, let's go further. We have parameters we want to take last. In Lodash, we usually have our data first, and afterwards we specify parameters. In Ramda, it works absolutely different way, and it's one of the reasons why Ramda is more suitable for carrying and functional programming. And yes, it's the main thing you need to care about if you decide to move from Lodash to Ramda, that you have different order of arguments, behavior of some functions is a little bit different, as I mentioned, for example, flatten and flatten deep. And it's pretty much it. So, yes, guys, feel free to ask me any questions. And I guess this joke actually doesn't work in Poland because it works in Germany, but I'm not sure it works in Poland because I have pretty complicated Slavic names, as most of you, I think, here. I created just a small website which just has those three links because of surname. So yes, feel free to ask any questions. I will be happy to answer them.
I would ask whether you have any strategies to get the other team members on board with Ramda and functional programming. I've experienced a bit of like, do we need that? It's complicated.
Actually, it works for React sometimes because if you are using Redux, it's already kind of functional. I mean, it's not like pure functional programming, but the direction of movements and the idea is functional, and some principles which Redux implements are functional. So actually, it works as an argument. Also, people usually have experience with some Lodash, and it becomes kind of standard instrument when you're working on some when you're working on projects. Of course, it depends. Some people avoid using it, some people prefer other libraries, but if you are already looking for some library to do some stuff with data structures, to do some stuff which JavaScript doesn't implement well, okay, why not try another library? Because, I mean, you can start just using Ramda as a replacement for Lodash, and you can play around, fool around some different approaches, try how does it look, how will it look like. And it's very important to avoid using everything which Ramda provides you. I mean, first of all, there are 246 helpers, and not of them are usually useful. Some of them are not useful at all, in my opinion, because of ECMAScript 6, 7, and syntax it provides us. But for some cases, for some particular reasons, you can just notice that, okay, I can do it 3 times smaller with Ramda. And in this case, people are not going to be afraid to accept it, to try something like that. But of course, you shouldn't do it like I shown you with 1 plus +2.
Yeah, they would ask whether we're going to learn category theory next.
Yes, I mean, there are different approaches, and I was talking about monads in Stuttgart 2 weeks ago, and it's even more complicated thing in order to decide do we need it or not. Because, okay, Ramda is so-so, but when it comes to monads, it's talk about different paradigm. It's talk about different approach of function composition, and those features are even harder to to promote in the team, to sell those features to a team. And with Ramda, it's much easier, I think, just to avoid making things harder. And that's it.
Okay. I assume you have used immutable data structures, probably.
Yes.
Do you have any preference between Immutable.js and Mori?
I'm using Immutable.js. For reason I don't know about Mori.
Okay. It's a little bit different API. It's like first level functions, and it comes from Clojure script.
Okay, unfortunately I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
And actually now I'm not using Immutable.js in current project. I'm trying to do it with monads on my own project. And I'm still not sure was it a good selection to avoid using immutable data structures and you have monads for every particular value instead of some immutable JS, for example. And but again, I worked on a project where we didn't have any immutable libraries at all. We were just agreed that we won't mutate objects. If you wanna do something with object, please use object assign or use underscore deep merge. So I guess approach not only about libraries, it's just about how you agree with your team and what approach you select on like principal level.
Okay. Thank you, Oleksandr.
Thank you.
It was very good.